Hey, good Monday morning, everybody. Ready to face another week, another week with our faith with the Lord. So I've been talking a little bit about Moses, and we've been looking over particularly the passage where he's at the burning bush. God is speaking to him, and God is telling him that he's going to send him back to Egypt to deliver the people from bondage there. I've alluded to Moses' life a little bit, but haven't really said much about it. I'm going to use a passage in Hebrews 11 today where it gives us some spiritual insight into what was going on with Moses, and I'll read that in a second. But I'm pretty sure life didn't turn out the way Moses thought it was going to turn out. I mean, I talked about how he was born at a time when all the little Hebrew babies were supposed to be killed. His parents put him in a little basket, put him in a little pool of water there where the daughter of the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, would come to bathe. And she found him and she took him home, took him to the palace, and she raised him as their own. And so Moses was raised as an heir to the Egyptian throne. He was truly a prince of Egypt. He was raised as royalty, and he had all of the rights and authority. And he possibly thought, one day I'm liable to be the ruler here, and if not the ruler, I'm liable to be having a lot of power. And I'm really kind of more than reading between the lines. I'm conjecturing a little bit, but maybe he thought, one day I will have the influence and the power and the authority that I can unite Egypt with my people, and that we can live together harmoniously, and we can come together. I'm sure he felt this sense of helping his people all along through his life. I don't think he realized that things were going to turn out the way they did, and he was going to end up killing an Egyptian taskmaster, slave master, whatever, and running away from Egypt and spending the second part of his life for 40 years wandering around out in the desert behind a bunch of sheep. I'm sure that was quite a disappointment. I'm sure it was quite a discouragement. I'm sure it at times got him down. But Hebrews says that, well, let me just read it. Hebrews 11, I'm just going to read verse 27, but you can start up there in about verse 23 and read on if you'd like. But verse 27 says that it was by faith that he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, because he endured as seeing him who is invisible. It said that it was by faith that he left Egypt. It was by faith that he went into that wilderness. And it was by faith that he forsook all the rights and all the privileges that he had as a prince in Egypt. And verse 26 says that he esteemed the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, because he looked for his reward. That he was willing to make that sacrifice because he saw something that was bigger. He saw his reward. And then in verse 27, the first verse I read, it said he endured as seeing him who is invisible. You see, what got him through all of that, and what got him through that difficulty, that hardship, that discouragement, what got him past the fact that life hadn't turned out the way he thought it was going to turn out, is that he saw God. But it said he saw him who was invisible. He saw the glory of God. He saw the plan of God. He saw the will of God. It was by faith that he trusted that God knew what he was doing, and that God had made promises to his people, and surely he knew about these promises, and that God was going to uphold and fulfill those promises, because he was a God who could be trusted. He was a God who was a promise keeper. And so it was by faith that he was willing to accept the lot in his lot in life, by seeing God who is invisible, by seeing his glory, by seeing his people, by seeing his plan, by seeing his promises, and by seeing his power, and by seeing his will. And I'm going to tell you what, when a life doesn't turn out the way you think it ought to, we have got to see something that's bigger than this life. We've got to see something that's bigger than my life and than your life. We've got to see the hand of God. We've got to see his works. We've got to see his ways. We have got to see by faith the glory of God, and that God is going to accomplish his will will and accomplish his purposes right here in our lives and all around us. It may not look like we think it ought to look. It may not be turning out the way we think it ought to be turning out. It may be a huge disappointment and discouragement the way it's turning out. But we need to, by faith, look and see the God who is invisible and his plan and his power and his will and his glory, and let him have his way. And it's only by faith that we'll endure the desert, just like Joseph. Hey, get out there. Have a great week. Faith today. God bless you guys. Love you.